So I have a panel of experts in their respective fields. And today we are going to speak about various issues touching on the entrepreneur, specifically actually zeroing in on the entrepreneurship journey, but also assessing, how is it we can support particularly the women entrepreneurs. And this will be on the backdrop of a study and a survey that AWIEF and MEDA did in partnership. But before we go into that, I'd just like to say that I work for MEDA. MEDA is the Mennonite Economic Development Associates. MEDA combines both financial expertise and technical expertise to drive, to build and enhance sustainable systems that provide work for marginalized communities, and so specifically to the women and the youth. MEDA is also a leading implementing partner for the Mastercard Foundation Africa Growth Fund that we also refer to as the fund. At the fund, we collaborate. We have a consortium of partners that work with us. We have a fund advisor, INP. We have the fund BDS angle, which is Business Development Services, supported by ESP. We also have Criterion that supports us with the work that we do on the gender diversity, equity, and inclusion. We do have Genesis Analytics, that is our monitoring, evaluation, and learning partner that also evaluates the impact of the fund. And we do have ACG, the Africa Communications Media Group, that supports us with communication, PR, and engagement. And so I just want to say that at the fund, we also do have a tailor-made product that prioritizes gender diverse investing, and particularly supporting women and their ability and capacity to build meaningful and sustained economic practices within the communities that they work in. And so I want to give an opportunity now to the panelists to just introduce themselves, but also tell us a bit about the companies that they work for before we delve into the session. And Wanjiru, I'd like to start with you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rita, and everyone. My name is Caroline Wanjiru Mambo. I'm the founder and CEO of Wedge Foods Limited, a potato value chain company, where we work with many farmers in the potato growing regions in Kenya. When you get the potatoes, we do the peeling, the cutting, and we supply as ready-to-cook potatoes to the hospitality space. The business is a post-COVID business, and as we say, well, some suffered the COVID. It was a blessing for our business because we became a very good resource to our farmers to reduce their post-harvest losses and also give them a direct market for their potatoes and reduce the exploitation by the middlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanjiru. Dr. Ola?
Hi, my name's Dr. Ola Brown. I run HealthCap, which is a specialist-focused investor with a Pan-African focus on early-stage investments in healthcare and fintech. I'm not a finance person by sort of original profession. I actually started life as a medical physician, working in emergency medicine. I then went on to set up the largest emergency services company in West Africa before starting my career in investment management in 2016 with a pilot fund, which subsequently became one of the best performing funds on the continent. We were the first investors in Flutterwave, one of the first investors in Paystack as well. And yeah, great to be here and to talk about our experiences in investing across the continent.
Thank you. Ben?
Good morning. My name is Ben Maina. I work for ESP, or Entrepreneurial Solutions Partners. ESP is a consulting firm that is specialized in working with and alongside entrepreneurs. So this could be founders or startups or also just ordinary business holders or business owners. We are Pan-African, originally from Côte d'Ivoire, but today with presence in multiple African countries. Maybe our core thing is just seeing the differences in environments, the different policies. Yes, Africa is one continent, but it's multiple regulatory concerns. So what I think our greatest strength is just being able to understand how much context matters for different small businesses and how to position a business for success. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Winnie?
Yeah, thanks everyone. My name is Winnie Osula, and I'm the lead for gender integration at AGRA. AGRA is a Pan-African organization working across Africa in 12 countries, soon to be 15. We are getting into Senegal, Togo, and Cote d'Ivoire. My experience spans from research, especially gender research, and also policy advocacy, but more so I'm looking into both social and economic empowerment for women across Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So as we delve into the discussion today, I just want to say that yesterday we did have a session where AWIEF, in partnership with MEDA, conducted a survey to assess the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Africa, and particularly engaging women, a number of them alumni of AWIEF, but also a broader perspective was taken to survey women that are outside of AWIEF in terms of their engagement. And the preliminary report had some key data points that I would like to reference as we have our discussion today. I think there are interesting insights from that perhaps will also just help us as we engage. And so I'd like to start off with the entrepreneur in the room, Wanjiru. One of the key things that came out from the survey result was that, and this is not new to a lot of us, that 67% of the women who were surveyed, and we're talking about 2,105 women, 67% of them still said, they're finding it very difficult to access capital in the continent. I'd like you, Wanjiru, to perhaps share with us your journey and your experience in maneuvering and trying to see how best to position your business as you look to access capital.
All right, thank you. So my journey is quite interesting. Being a serial entrepreneur, having done business, you start any other business just to earn that extra income. But then as you go along, as your business is growing, you realize there's much more, and you also need financing to scale to the next level. Otherwise, you'll always be plateauing at the same place. So the 3 years of my growth, the funding that I've received is from either my group of women, what we call in Kenya, chamas, where you take some loans to put in your business. I've gone to bank loans, but the bank loans have been very frustrating. Number one, the interest rates are high, and you find sometimes it's not well structured to fit into the business, and especially because we're in the value chain, and just to consider all the things that we go through. So my active time of fundraising has been this year, where I wanted to know, you're told there's so much money available for women, but you're not getting it and you don't know where it is. But I just went into digging deeper, having more conversation just around what are the development partners looking for? Who are these people who have the money and they need to support women? And my greatest lesson is we need, as women in business, to align our businesses with the goals of the people with the money. So what does this mean? And they also want to invest in businesses that are scalable, that have high impact, and there's openness, transparency, and all that. So it has made me get into just understanding and defining my goals very well. The impact I want to bring to the women, to the farmers that we work with, the people who work in the factory. And I can say I am not yet there, but I believe by working on those in-house systems and processes, aligning our values, looking at the conversations around the globe on financing women and agriculture, then it creates better opportunity. It's quite challenging, it takes time, but I believe if you put in the effort and the work, things start opening up.
Thank you, Wanjiru. And Wanjiru talks about, high interest rates. So typically, many women target the traditional sources of funding. But speaking to now Dr. Ola, you're in the space where you're assessing and evaluating potential businesses to onboard. What are some of the innovative ways in which first-time-led fund managers like yourselves are now, taking as an approach? Perhaps can we share with the audience the alternative financing that is now available in the market?
Okay, first I'd like to say that on the topic of women and financing, I feel that there are lots of innovative ways that women can get their business financed, but there's still an intrinsic bias in the financial services industry and in the professional industry in general. I posted something on my LinkedIn. It was some research from The Economist, and this is the newest piece of research that I've seen, and it says that master's degrees are actually more useful for women than for men, because women are often judged on what they have done, whereas men are often judged on what they say they are going to do. So women need a lot more credibility to get the same type of positions that men can get because they said that they have this expertise, but women often need to prove that they have that expertise. And then there's another really interesting Harvard Business Review article that looks at venture capitalists like myself in Norway, which is probably in most of our minds one of the most egalitarian places in the world. But it looked at the behavior of venture capitalists when people were coming to pitch. So what they did is they played a trick on the venture capitalists, and they had men and women come in and say exactly the same thing. So when a female founder spoke, they'll say, she's too ambitious, she's being unrealistic. But when the male founder spoke, they said, this guy, we're going to back him because, he's got a great vision. So I think also sometimes we have to be aware of our own intrinsic biases and the way that somebody can be saying exactly the same thing, but we judge it differently. Now, onto the sources of financing that we offer at HealthCap. Like I said, we invest in two sectors, health tech and fintech. And what we're looking for, or what I've been looking for the past sort of 10 years in the venture space, are the same three things plus one. So I look at what I call the jockey, the horse, and the market. So I look at if you've ever watched a horse race before, I look at the horse, I look at the product. Then I look at the person riding the horse or the team. And what I'm looking at in a founder is experience in the team. What kind of experience do they have? What kind of business have they built already? In the product, I'm looking at, is this product sort of a sturdy product, especially if it's a technology product? I'm doing due diligence on the actual product. How much have they been able to build? And then on the market, is there really a market? And we spend a lot of time on the market. I think that's where we spend the most time from our own perspective as investors. We spend a lot of time looking at the market and really trying to find out if there's a market in which the business can scale. Because a lot of people spot a gap in the market. But the question that we are asking is there a market inside that gap? And I think that these are the three things that we've historically looked for. But I've added one thing onto that now, which is, how can I help this company? So what contacts do I have? What other portfolio companies do I have that can really add value to this particular company? And I think that that's important. There was an interesting tweet yesterday that positioned Elon Musk as a venture capitalist. And they said that nearly every company from Tesla to Neuralink, they had founders. He just came in and made those companies exponentially better than even the founders could imagine. So looking at your role as a venture capitalist as somebody that tries to make something exponentially better or tries to really improve and add value in a big way, I also look at, how are the synergies between our relationships and the other portfolio companies. So remember, the founder, first of all, experience, the product, the market. Make sure that there's not just a gap in the market, but a market in the gap, and then also the overall synergies between the value that we can add as investors as well. How can we Elon Musk it and make it better?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Ola. And I think she brings in a very critical point about pitching, and especially how do you sell yourself as a business? How do you sell the products? How do you pitch to a potential investor? I think over the years we've seen many women under-promising but looking to over-deliver. Sometimes at the onset, those are some of the pitfalls that you then encounter that perhaps prohibit you from going through the door, so to speak. But I want to bring Ben into the conversation because beyond what fund allocators look at, I think the study yesterday, we were able to see that still a significant number of women are struggling, and especially in the area of budget and financial management. As an entrepreneurial solutions partner, I know you deal with many women pre-investment. Perhaps, are there other things that women entrepreneurs and generally entrepreneurs need to be looking into, perhaps before they reach out to fund allocators in the market?
Yeah, great question. So what we've seen is, so there's this word it's a buzzword around accelerate. So everyone is looking to accelerate small businesses, but the main question is accelerate them to where? And then also there's fatigue on the entrepreneur side in the sense that they don't want to be accelerated anymore. They just want capital. But usually there's a chicken and egg situation. So how do you get the capital if people feel like you're not ready for the capital? So what we've seen is that usually the common things that businesses need before or alongside the capital is first tailor-made advisory. So you have to distinguish between businesses. Common thing we see is that a business in Kigali will work very well. Same business, take it to Lagos and it collapses. Why? Because market context. So do you want to kind of adapt your strategy for the context? So in this is the case for all capital allocators, all programs out there. There's first you have to adapt whatever strategies you're going to use for the market context. And then we're also seeing a situation where most entrepreneurs have been working on the business for so long that they forgot to work. They work in the business and not on the business. So the business is not growing beyond, everyone comes back to you for guidance. You haven't cascaded your vision. You haven't put in place strategy. You haven't put in place processes. So usually we look at this as there's the core issues which Dr. Ola is looking for, which is the right person, the right product, the right market. And then we think of these other elements as the hygiene factors. So do you have your books in place? Do you have processes? Is there some sort of governance structure that will allow for the capital allocator not to find reasons to say no, because you've sorted out your hygiene factors, and then now they can focus on the core elements. But again, just context matters, and in more and more cases, we are seeing a situation where tools can help, because startups or small businesses are capital constrained. So how do you make your small business look a little bit more professional or handle more than what it is capable of handling with the team that it has? Technology tools becoming more and more critical. So how do you use these tools to streamline your processes and your business?
Thank you, Ben. I think what I'm hearing from Ben is, have a plan, even if the infrastructure is not in place. Have a plan on, some of the processes that you're looking at that will perhaps also enhance efficiency in your operations. Even if that is not funded, perhaps these are some of the areas that investors could actually step in and say, we are willing to fund the business as long as these particular areas will be addressed to help you manage the business more sustainably. So moving on to Winnie, and Winnie with AGRA has worked with a lot of women in the agri space. One of the key data points that came out from the survey also was that about 30% of the 2,000 slightly over 2,000 women who responded to the survey are actually in the agri space. So Winnie, perhaps share with us what are some of the unique opportunities that women in this space can leverage on, to advance themselves and to enhance their ability to absorb capital.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I think I want to remind ourselves that small and medium businesses in Africa are about 90%. And then 2/3 of this, they're contributing to 2/3. So when you look at that kind of data, because the 2/3 I'm talking about the employment opportunities that they create. So when you look at that kind of data, it tells you that the small and medium businesses are actually an opportunity. But when we come to how we can support women, especially in the agri-food systems, I want to draw attention to 5 key areas, and this is market access, diversification, looking at access to capital, capacity building, and of course the networking, which I think most of us are doing here. But as I bring that into the picture, I want us to draw from the conversations of yesterday when we talked about the CFTA. And I'm looking at this agreement as something that is really giving women opportunities. When it comes to market access, the agreement is encouraging, a unified kind of African market, which I believe if women exploit, they can actually benefit from that. Then, of course, we look at the capacity building. The platform, the agreement also provides for opportunities to learn new ideas, to build their skills in different areas. Then there's again the diversification. It encourages diversification. The kind of products that they can bring into the market. And then, of course, with diversification, we are creating greater business opportunities. Access to market, to capital, which I think everyone here is talking about. And the agreement also is facilitating access to capital, especially from the regional and even the continental financial providers, maybe through loans and even grants. And AGRA is one of those institutions that is actually doing grant making. But those are things we can discuss, as we find time. But of course, there's also the networking, because when women build, meaningful collaborations, then they are able to connect with people of like-minded and also contribute to each other's growth. But of course, when you talk about access to capital, let's think about the capacity building bit, because these two actually go together. So I'm seeing the AFCFTA as a really great opportunity. If we can make our agripreneurs know about this, the opportunities that come with it, then I think we can make some impact through that.
Yeah. Thank you, Winnie. And I can say that actually from the survey, we did see that West Africa, a number of the enterprises there were growing significantly, attributed partly to AFCFTA. So taking advantage of, some of the programs that are available in the ecosystem that can support, businesses to grow vibrantly. But I want to come back to Wanjiru, the entrepreneur in the room, and we hear a lot about, entrepreneurs being investment ready, preparing yourself to be able to work with potential investors. How do you, from your perception, what does readiness look like from perhaps also an entrepreneur's perspective? Because there are different ways in which I think we all define readiness. Do you feel ready? Or do you feel you've learned from the process of collaborating and networking from a readiness perspective?
All right, thank you. Do I feel ready? Not 100%, but I'm getting there. And what I've come to learn, and especially for me, this year it's been a year of learning. Readiness means so much. It means, do you believe in the story that you're telling? Do you believe you're an agent of change? Do you believe in the impact that you're building? Where do you see the impact in 5 years? How are you fitting in the conversations going on around climate change, creating jobs, women empowerment? So for me, readiness is defining your goals and your strategy and aligning them and believing in themselves. The other thing, we always say we are looking for money. But then, if let's say today I'm given $1 million for my business, am I really ready for that money? So what do I need to do in my systems, with my people, with my operational efficiencies, so that when that money comes, then it takes me to the next level, which is profitability and growing your business. The product that you have, is the market well defined? Do you know who your clients are and what are you doing about it? Do you have enough products to solve the problem that is there? Personally, I always say when you're doing potato value addition, there's a lot of wastage. And as I grow and I don't get the solution for my wastage or the efficiency, then I just make the problems bigger. So what am I doing right now to improve or to close on that gap? So I believe being ready as a small business, it takes small folds, like you mentioned. Define your market, get your product right, your systems and processes, then also build a good team around you. You're the vision bearer of the business, but your team also needs to understand where you're going, and you need to share with them the passion that you have, the goals, the milestones that you want, so that even as you bring in other investors, the whole team well aligned. Then in terms of financing, what are you looking for? Are you ready to relinquish some of your stake for something? Are you ready to bring in somebody else into your business? I know as women, someone said we need to stop having bedroom affairs with our business. We hold on to them so much that you don't want to open up. Are you ready for that? So as you define financial readiness, those are some of the key questions that you need to ask yourself before you go to the next level.
Thank you. So looking at it from an end-to-end perspective, carrying your team along and the entrepreneur who holds the vision, are you carrying your team along? Do they know what it is that you want to achieve? Are they able to articulate your vision even as they engage with you alongside other stakeholders? So coming back to Dr. Ola, when you are looking to invest in a potential business, there are a number of things you look at. And we've talked about them, but typically you're also looking to balance, the perceived risk. You're perhaps also looking at, social impact to a great extent, because the capital that comes to you, typically you find that the investors have certain mandates. How do you balance all this alongside the potential of the business to grow?
So I think it's not just a problem for sort of investors in this space in Africa. It's always a problem for anybody looking at putting money into a business. We want the business to make the world a better place, but we know also that the GDP probably of the whole of Africa is smaller than California. In order to lift people out of poverty, in order to make people's lives better, in order to give people dignified jobs, Africa has no choice but to build bigger businesses, because that is the way that the world is set up. If we're unable to build bigger and more profitable businesses, then we're going to stay like this. And I don't think anybody who is from Africa in the room wants to stay like this. We want to contribute more to the world. We want to make things that the world wants. And in order to do this, we need our businesses to be bigger, we need them to be more innovative, and we need them to be more globally impactful. So when I'm assessing businesses, I look at probably 4 main impact metrics. I think gender inclusion is important. So half of our current portfolio for this fund, the companies in our current portfolio have a female leader. And it's not a sentimental thing. Africa is actually the only continent in the world where a woman is more likely to take entrepreneurial risk than a man. So there are more female entrepreneurs than men in Africa, compared to Asia, compared to America, compared to Europe. So it means that investing in women's businesses is key for that transformation that we want to see on this continent. So I think that there's a strong economic reason for having a gender lens to our investments. One of the other things that we look at are the number of jobs created, because I think in South Africa, but definitely in Nigeria, where I come from, unemployment is a problem, and unemployment leads to insecurity. It has a sort of knock-on effect on a lot of factors in our economy. So if we can get people employed and if they can have dignified jobs, then we can start thinking about economic growth in a serious way. The third thing is, I sincerely believe that there's a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. And actually, if we can provide products that are affordable to people and accessible to people, particularly in the area of healthcare and fintech, then we can really have scalable products. But if the products are expensive, and you look at sort of the number of people that earn $9,000 and above, you look at the number of people that earn $20,000 and above, if it's exclusive to, the sort of upper middle class, would I say, then there are very, very few numbers that can afford it compared to Europe and America. So we look at pricing actually compared to the benchmark price and say, can enough people afford this product to make it scalable in the markets that we operate? So that's really a bit on the impact side. On the business side, I always say that fundamentals never go out of fashion. So we do talk about systems and processes and getting your accounts in order and everything, but I can remember when the people at the financial institution that were doing the initial due diligence on the business of Aliko Dangote, the richest man in Africa, were sort of looking at the business. They said that it was not structured, but there was money in the business. They could see the cash flows in the bank. So the investors actually brought people to structure the business because they really wanted to invest, because they could see that this thing had massive revenues and massive profits. So I think when you're looking at the sort of business side and the commercial side, always remember that no matter what state of the market is, margins, profit, revenue, these things never go out of fashion. And as long as these things are growing at a exponential trajectory, investors will be more attracted. So I think I've said a bit on the impact metrics that we specifically look at and the economic reasons why we look at those metrics. And then I've also talked about the commercials. Revenue, profit, margin, they never go out of fashion. And I think it's important to also balance these commercial factors with the impact factors. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ola. I think, and that ties in, these things that don't go away on the financial side still seem to be a sticky point for many women, but important to understand some of the key fundamental revenue drivers for your business. And perhaps maybe, Ben, you've worked with a number of enterprises pre and post-investment. As you support them to unlock and absorb capital for growth, are there some common areas of intervention or trend that you see with many of them?
Yeah, definitely there's there are common threads, depending. And this is despite the size, despite the region. I think there's the areas that we've seen most entrepreneurs need assistance with post or pre-investment typically would start with financial management. So as she mentioned, if Dangote Aliko needs his business to be structured, you can imagine what the spaza shop in Cape Town needs as well. But it's also a question of how do you simplify financial management at a spaza level versus at a conglomerate. And what we've seen is that over time, what the entrepreneurs are able to understand and implement varies. So there's also a need to keep coming back and almost retraining or resensitizing this business owner that, hey, at this point in time now, this kind of compliance has kicked in. Your books need to look this way. You need to structure the business in the following way. So that's something that we see that doesn't go out of scope. And there's also something just to think about what Wanjiru was talking about. It's the financial literacy is also it combines with what kind of capital that you're looking for. So if If you're a business that is in the buying and selling of commodities, then there are other metrics that will, in terms of like your banker or a person looking to put in money into your business, will be more keen on things like what's your liquidity ratio, how cash conversion cycles, and things like that, which are a little bit more technical. You kind of need to understand them if you're in that kind of space, but if you're in a different kind of business, perhaps you manufacture garments or you sell technology, then those are not metrics that you need to know. Another thing we see is HR and streamlining. So it's a question of vision and how well that vision is understood by your business. So usually when ESP starts working with an entrepreneur and with a business, we usually have a vision exercise, and we just ask, okay, take the entire staff or the senior management team and ask you, if there's an article 5 years from now, what would it say? And usually that exercise allows us to be able to tell, is everyone dreaming the same dream? Is everyone pulling in the same direction and with the same intensity? So if I want an IPO in 5 years, and Dr. Ola and I work in the same business and she wants to expand to Botswana, then we have two different kind of intensities, we have two different kind of visions, and therefore we will definitely have some challenges in how we see this business going forward. And then lastly is around market development and customer retention. So this is a common thread. As businesses grow, their complexities grow, but also they forget to take care of their customers. And customers almost become a necessary evil. So we see this, it almost ends up in a love-hate relationship where the business owner is comfortable with letting go of some customers because perhaps, don't know why, but in some cases it's, maybe you just outgrew those customers. So how do you build systems in place that allow you to be able to grow while still retaining your customers or still maintaining some sort of relationship with them?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think HR remains a big one. You know, a lot of potential investors want to invest not just in the entrepreneur, but in their team as well. Typically, when the business is still relatively young, I know many entrepreneurs shy away from investing resources in HR. But we also saw from the results of the survey study yesterday that as the employee numbers grow, there's a correlation with profitability and sales. And you know, your ability to reach your clientele and customer base and also then serve them in a way that you're able to retain them for growth. I don't know, Winnie, if you share in the insights and strategies that have been discussed. But in your view, what and how can we bridge the gender financing gap for women-led businesses, especially in the agri space?
Yeah, thanks again for that question. And I would like to start by saying that I'm a big champion for gender responsive policy advocacy. And I think that is a starting point because we need to understand, the different needs of women and men, and then we need to tailor our policies to address those specific needs. But the other thing for me is, again, around innovation. And innovation, I'm talking about digital financing. Because what the data also shows us is that those that were previously considered unbanked have so far been reached through mobile money. So I think our women who are still unbanked, we can actually expand that innovation and make sure that we are reaching them. The other thing for me is the business development services, because sometimes it's about someone wanting something, but they do not know how best to go about it within their business ideas. And you can also not give me money as a woman agripreneur and not show me how best to use that money when I do not have financial literacy, for instance. So I think those three issues come for me forward, but at the same time, I want to tie those three issues to technical assistance. Because when it comes to issues around policy, that's why we are talking about regulations. What if they don't know how to navigate these regulations? So technical assistance is one of those strategies that can actually come in to make sure that, we are making the women more aware of the kind of certifications they need in order to expand their market base and all that. But of course, How about, how they can optimize the resources that are already constrained? So those are some of the areas I'm seeing or strategies that we can use in order to try and bridge that gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. And I think compliance is a big one for many entrepreneurs because as you grow and as you build structures, then, issues around tax, as you look to expand into other regions and geographies, especially if you're in the export business, then there are certain certifications that you will require. And sometimes when you do work with technical assistance providers, they're able to shed light in terms of, what and how can you go about having access to all these things that the business requires as they grow. So definitely it's a journey. And Wanjiru, I know we've talked about value creation, we've talked about technical assistance, business development services, same thing. But do you believe as an entrepreneur that businesses actually do require support? And if so for you, what stands out? I think from the survey yesterday, we did see that about 2/3 of the women who were surveyed had not attended any of the accelerator programs. And perhaps a question that came through was, is it for lack of knowledge, or is it because they were perhaps not selected? Because some of these accelerator programs also have a selection criteria. And, knowing what it is that they're looking for and how you can be a part of that is also fundamental for you to grow your business. So Wanjiru, just touch on, for you, what stands out? Is this a real need for entrepreneurs?
All right. I think beyond the money, as a woman entrepreneur, you need to work on yourself and your mindset. And some of the ways to grow so that you're able to be more resilient, to think through and to think broadly is number one, mentorship. Mentorship is very critical. And I recall this year, after I participated in the AGRA Wire Awards, we were attached to a mentorship program and a food and agriculture organization. And my mentor asked me, so you've told me so much about your business, but now, how are you doing? How do you handle your stress levels? How is your family? How are your children? Because it goes beyond. You have to have more clarity, and to have that clarity of where you want to take your business, to manage the teams that you have first to work on yourself. So good mentorship is very important, and especially if you're matched with the right mentor. The other thing is women, you have the power. When you come together, there's so much power that happens. And therefore, such events are very important because you get to learn from one another. And as I always say, one of the things we can do is to keep sharing our stories, and let's be as authentic as possible, because that encourages somebody. And you're also able to open up to share some of the challenges that you're facing through, and someone else has the solution. And as Winnie said, when you're put in such of these programs, there's strong collaboration. For example, if I'm working with farmers, mine is in the potato value chain. If I meet another fellow woman who has been in the tomato value chain, we can actually leverage on the same farmers or work together, or whatever has worked for them can work very well. So I believe the mentorship, accelerator programs, such events are very good for information. And even as we go to the farms to engage with our farmers, we realize there's an information gap. You're telling our farmers to grow certified potatoes, but they don't know what is this certified. I've always borrowed seeds from my neighbor. So there's an information gap, and when you have a business that you're running, make sure everybody in the value chain has that information. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Wanjiru. So maybe Dr. Ola, you can share some insights with the audience, especially the entrepreneurs who are positioning themselves for capital absorption. How do they do this going forward? I think this is the last round of questions. We will be coming to the audience briefly. But yeah, any insights for entrepreneurs in the room?
So I think when raising capital, the key question you have to ask yourself is, what do you want to do with your business? Many of our parents, they had businesses, right? But they were almost like special purpose vehicles for just putting children through school. And you find out that when you got into university, all those businesses folded up. So they weren't kind of serious about scaling the business across the country. They're just trying to say, look, I have some children, I'm busy, this is the easiest way to just get some small money to put them through school, and then I'm going to fold up my business. My parents had a business like that. The day I entered university was the day that the business dissipated, because the purpose of the business was kind of over. So I think it's about thinking very, very carefully about what you want to achieve. Because if you really just want that kind of lifestyle business and you take on capital, then people are going to expect, there's going to be a mismatch between what the investors are expecting and what you're delivering. I actually have a book called Journey to Series A, and there's a video on my YouTube channel, which is I think almost 2 hours long, that goes through investor readiness in much more detail than I can do on this panel. But basically, I think that if I was going to give 3 main pieces of advice for raising capital from a VC, from a PE, and even to some extent from your bank, I would say number 1, relationships are key. So don't let the time that you're going to raise capital be the first time that your banker ever sees you. There should be an ongoing relationship. In Nigeria, we have account officers that look after your account. We have branch managers, and they will be able to advocate for you at the credit committee. So life is about relationships, and you find out that people with good relationships just get things more easily. It's not a complete meritocracy. So I think your relationships are really key. And one of my favorite quotes about relationships is the best time to build your network is before you need it. And the best time to keep that network strong is always. So after relationships, I'd say the second most important thing is really finding your story about your business and being able to tell that story. I think Rita mentioned being able to pitch that story to different types of investors, and always be ready to pitch the story, always be ready to tell your story and sort of talk about what you're going to do, talk about the vision, talk about the capability of that business. And the third thing is what Ben has been emphasizing on, I think, since the beginning of this panel, which is, having your finances in order. And if you can build a small financial model, no matter how small your business is, where an investor can actually see, okay, these are the levers of the business. And if they keep on pushing on that lever and they get up to 100 units of this business, this is what it's going to be in a few years' time. So I would say relationships number 1, then story number 2, and then just getting your finances in order. So when an investor actually the interest is now peaked, you're able to show them what your business is like and being able to tell, I guess, a more financial story of your business, as well as the sort of initial pitch document. So when they get into the weeds, they'll be able to get what they want to see, and they're not kind of continuously waiting for you to send different documents, but they are already. So those are sort of my 3 things.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ola. And I can see time is not on our side, but I would like Winnie to wrap it up. Ben, I'll skip you because I know you've also spoken a bit. But I would like Winnie to just share some practical examples very briefly with us in terms of the technical assistance that they have done from their end, and how women entrepreneurs are accessing capital on the agri side.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think I'm disadvantaged to sit right in front of the timer, so it's really blinking, so I'll make it quick. Yeah, one of them is we need to know that markets are very volatile. So what I would share as a best example is we need to provide TA in the form of market analysis so that the agripreneurs can actually be informed of what the market is, and then they can do their product development to fit into that market. But another key one for me is strategic networking, like what AWIEF has done for us, because through this you're able to meet other like-minded agripreneurs, meet investors and all that. But even as we provide technical assistance, 2 key things for me. We need to look at what is it at the beginning of the technical assistance. That is the pre-technical assistance phase, because that is where the agripreneurs are navigating unknown waters. They need to understand how to bring their ideas to fruition. But at the same time, resources are very constrained. So how do they position themselves and actually use the limited resources to advance themselves? But at the post-technical phase, we can see some level of structured growth. So we need to look at what is it at the beginning and what is it at the end. And of course, networking and expansion. For me, these are still key things that come out as those best practices that we need to look at. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it.